Hi, welcome to another essay writing video. In this video, we're going to look at the essay submissions that were sent to me last week as part of our online essay writing contest. If you want to discuss any of these results, please come join us at IELTSnetwork.com. Before we get started, I would just like to disclaim something. I am not an IELTS examiner, nor have I ever been an IELTS examiner. And the bands that I'm allotting to these essays come as a result of my experience as an IELTS instructor and as a result of the descriptions provided to us in the Task 2 Writing Band Descriptors chart, which is available at IELTS.org. Okay, before we get to the essays themselves, let's read through the question. Tourism is an excellent tool through which a country can develop. However, certain side effects of tourism can be harmful. How can countries curb the damaging effects of a growing tourism industry? Now, the essays range in band. We have one essay that's at about a band 7 level, and several essays at band 6, several more essays at bands 5.5 and 5, and about maybe 4 essays that score at about a band 4. And I should point out that the students that ended up with essays that scored in the lower bands typically did not interpret this part of the question correctly. The question is asking you to argue how countries can lower or stop the damaging effects of a growing tourism industry. It's not asking you to argue what the damaging effects themselves are. So there were a few essays that spent several paragraphs trying to argue what those particular damaging effects are, and this obviously is not a fitting response to the essay question. So your essay, unfortunately, as a whole, kind of failed. Okay, now we're going to go through the essays one at a time. I'm going to start with the strongest essays and then move through to the weakest. So the band 7 essay was written by user Vic. And I won't read through the entire essay. I'm just going to share a couple of things that I thought were impressive about this essay, and then a few more things that Vic can improve on. So I thought that Vic's lexical resources were very good. He uses some very academic sounding words like begets, encouraged, allocate. He used the word draconian, which actually I'll type here really quickly, which I thought was quite impressive, and he used it accurately. Draconian is if you were to describe perhaps some rules or some practice that is very old in thinking, almost medieval, maybe not fitting to a modern society. So well done there, Vic. Good job. Now, I just want to point out a few things, Vic, that you could improve upon. There are a few issues with articles in your writing. So actually, there's one right at the beginning here. It is well known that tourism industry brings, so it should be a tourism industry or not so much that a tourism industry brings tremendous benefits. So that's one issue you might want to look at. Please review possessives, because I noticed in several instances you write the it's possessive with an apostrophe, which is a mistake. There are a few areas where there's a bit of awkward wording, but for the most part your sentences were quite good. Let me see here. I'm just reading my notes. Okay, now I want to point out a sentence that Vic included in his essay that I thought was particularly strong, and maybe some other students can learn from this. So look at the way that Vic finishes his first supporting paragraph. Okay, thus it can be clearly seen from this example that imposition of such fines may help restrain tourists from tossing their trash wherever they please. Okay, so now I believe the point of this paragraph was to show that that imposing certain rules upon travelers can help to kind of slow down or curb the amount of rubbish and trash that kind of gets thrown around. And so here we can see that Vic is clearly linking that idea right back to his thesis at the beginning of the essay. So I was quite impressed by that sentence. I thought it's a very complex sentence. It's mostly grammatically correct, and I think that was a really good attempt there, Vic. And the second concluding sentence in his second supporting paragraph was also quite good. Therefore, authorities should be encouraged to allocate more police resources to the places visited by sightseers. So again, I'll just point out that Vic was also very good about using cohesive phrases and using them accurately. So we see, even just looking right now, I can see therefore, as this example shows, this. Okay, so Vic is working hard to kind of tie his sentences together and make sure that they work as a team. So well done there, Vic. I think that's all the comments I have for you on that essay. Okay, great. Okay, thanks for that, Vic. So that was about a Band 7 essay. Now the next one I felt weighed in at about a Band 6. So let me get down to it here. And this was by user Pink Roses. Now, Pink Roses had some marks in various areas. So for example, I felt that the task achievement was actually kind of on the weak side, because unfortunately Pink Roses, your first supporting paragraph spends a lot of time discussing the problems and not so much discussing how to fix those problems, which is what the purpose of the essay is. So you kind of lost marks there, but I thought that your grammar was quite strong. I noted here that I would have put grammar at about a Band 7, or maybe I've put 7 plus, so 7 to 7.5 even, but probably about a Band 7. And your cohesion and coherence was quite good, so at about Band 6.5. So I thought overall you'd probably get a Band 6 with this, but a student like you can very easily jump to the higher band simply because your grammar is very good. And this is really just a technical issue. I mean, all we have to do is ensure that your essay is more in keeping with what the essay question is asking. Okay, so I don't think that you're going to have to spend as much time as, say, a student with weak grammar will have to spend to get yourself to the next level. Now, I just have a couple notes here that I want to talk with you about. Yeah, so there are some areas. Now, we looked at Vic, who had quite strong concluding sentences in each of his supporting paragraphs. Here, I just wrote a little comment to myself that I wasn't sure if you're still talking about tourists, because it says if stricter rules were enforced, then this could certainly make a difference to the economy. And that's not really what the essay is about. So when the reader sees this, we kind of lose track about what you're talking about. I don't know if you're still on track with the whole curbing the damaging effects of growing tourism industries. So anyway, you might just want to have a look at that. But let me see, what else do I have noted here? Yep. Okay, mostly okay. Please don't put things like slashes in your essay. It's a little thing I've noted. Where's the slash? I have my notes here. Let's see, first paragraph. It's probably right in front of me here somewhere. Oh, here. Yeah, so avoid things like this. I don't know why this M is capitalized. There are certain small things that you might want to review a little bit, but definitely, please avoid things like slashes. It just looks lazy. So it just means your examiner has to fill in a word for that slash, which you don't want to do because your examiner will read into that as being somewhat of a lazy writer. Okay, so thank you for that, Band 6, Pink Roses. Now it's Sujin. Also Band 6. My notes here are that the coherence is quite good, except it's good as a result of having some poor grammar in areas. So now one thing that defines the difference between, say, Band 6 writing and Band 5 is that even when you have some grammatical mistakes at Band 6, the reader is still able to comprehend what your point is. But at band 5, there will be a little bit of incoherence at times. So, so Sujin, you have some, areas of grammar that you need to improve upon, but your grammar is not, so weak that it pushes your mark down to a band 5. I'm not sure what's going on with your spacing, so all of these full stops should have spaces after them. Okay, let me see here. Oh, and yeah, you seem to use 2 topic sentences, which you can do, but you want to be as concise as possible. So please remember that good form in English is to say as much as you can in as few words as you can. And that shows someone who has control of vocabulary, has control of grammar. So, when you can, please try to condense this area into a single sentence. Let's see. Okay, I noticed that there are some issues with commas throughout the writing, so you might want to look at that. And please, try to use more academic words at times. There's an issue I've noted here where you use the word small to describe someone's clothes, when I think that what you mean is a word like revealing. I'll try to find the actual example here. It said here it is, extremely small clothes. So, for example, in India, I'm reading from here, it is very uncommon for a person to drink alcohol in public or wear extremely small clothes when they are out. And so, I mean, these sorts of words, it'll just indicate to your examiner that you couldn't think of a better word, and that's not what you want to do. You want to show them that you're capable of using academic vocabularies as much as you can, accurately. Okay, and I noted that your conclusions are quite good of your supporting paragraphs, and you're also making good use of cohesive phrases. So I think that that's really a good sign there. So you're linking back to your thesis, which is good. Okay, so well done there, Sujin. That's another band 6. Now let's continue on here to Annabelle, who I felt was also band 6, a band 6 writer. Now I'm just reading through my notes for Annabelle. Okay. There's some slight incoherence at times, Annabelle, in your writing. And I think this is due to lexical resources and perhaps grammar as well. But so, for example, here, to tackle these issues, law enforcement on alcohol limitations and council's restriction on developments in rural areas related solutions will be analyzed for viability. So it's right in here where I kind of lose track of what you're trying to say. And I think what you mean when you say council's restrictions is maybe something like lawful restrictions. I'm not exactly sure. And then on rural, area-related solutions, again, so all this becomes more clear when I read your supporting paragraph, but you don't want your examiner to get to this outline sentence and then kind of start to ask themselves, what is the student trying to say here? That's not gonna help very much. So just be careful there. Try to be as clear as you can. Okay. I also noted that you were very good about tying your supporting paragraphs back to your thesis. So so here you have, so thus the effectiveness of the suggested solution can be seen. And that's pretty good. Okay. Oh, one thing I wanted to address is at several points you put a comma after the verb is, which I'm not entirely sure why you do that. I'll give you an example here. So an idea that supports this is, and then comma, in England, I know sometimes when people speak, they do say things like this and they'll pause after the verb is. But in your writing, you don't want to do that. So you would probably want to reword this something like, the councils in England play a good example here, or something, and then full stop, and then go on to explain it further. But having it worded like this is kind of awkward, and you do this twice in your writing. Somewhere else in this essay, there's another comma after is, which is kind of awkward. Okay. So I just noted to myself here, though, that I felt that there was a good logical progression through your supporting paragraphs, despite the fact that some areas become slightly incoherent. But it seems that the reasoning is there. So for you to improve beyond this band 6, you're going to need to work on your grammar. And I don't think it's going to be really that difficult, because you're making silly mistakes. Like this comma after is just silly. And work on your lexical resources, please, so that you're using words that are kind of, more fitting. So like we were saying, like council's restriction is awkward. I'm not sure what that means. And there were other instances there too where I thought the wording was a little bit difficult to follow. Okay, so that's thank you for that submission, Annabelle, and that's another band 6 essay. Okay, the next submission is from Nathan, and Nathan is also writing at a band 6. Okay, now Nathan, the main point I have here, I've put a little star on your essay, and the issue that you have here is with structure. So your grammar is quite strong, but there is little evidence that's little evidence-based argument here. So let me try to give you an example. Okay, so let's take it from here. Now, normally, after the topic sentence, the student is to share an example and then use that example to, discuss that example to kind of show why the topic sentence is true, or why the topic sentence should be supported. So here you've shared as your example, firstly, tourism can lead to crowding and congestion along with alcohol and drug problems. Secondly, interaction between visitors and local people could erode traditional customs and cultural heritage. Finally, tourism could threaten the local natural environments by waste pollution and tourists' activities. So you've provided examples, but I don't see any real discussion of these examples or any linking back to your thesis, to show how these examples support the overall direction of the essay. So that might be something you might want to take a look at and try to improve. But like I said, your grammar is quite good, and for students that have strong grammar but are weak in other areas, the ability or the chance for them to improve is just that much easier, because grammar tends to be the most difficult thing to clean up. Now let me see if I've got anything else for you here. Okay, right, and yeah, another obvious thing I should have just mentioned was, so in this same highlighted area, you seem to be focusing on the problems that tourism causes, but not so much the solutions. And that's a problem, because the essay is not asking you to do this. It's more interested in you suggesting ways and arguing why these ways are plausible for lowering the damages that are caused by growing tourism levels. So this entire area here is a little bit invalid, because it doesn't really keep with the essay question. Okay, so those are my comments for you, and thank you for submitting that, Nathan. Now the next essay is by Samat, and this is also a band 6. Okay, now the first thing is that Samat shares good specific examples that strengthen the argument. Okay, so let's look at his first example here. So now he shares a specific country, and I like these sorts of examples because this is very difficult for people to counter. If you show them a true to life action of what you're trying to say, it's very hard for people to disagree with you or counter your argument. if people are being broad about their examples and they say, oh, in some countries, in some tourist attractions in some countries, people have to pay a reasonable fee or some fee to get in. I mean, that's not very specific, and it's not very convincing either. So that's what I like about Samat is he's sharing very specific, true to life examples. Now that's example one, and his second example, I believe, is also about Japan, right? So for instance, in Japan, tens of thousands of people have gathered together in the Mount Fuji to clean up the place. Okay, bit of a grammar issue there, but still, very to the point, and even as specific as Mount Fuji. So good for you, Samat. Those are some pretty strong examples, and I hope with time that the grammar will help to present those even better. Now, I just wanted to go back up to your introduction here and just point out something. So we have, okay, a successful tourism industry has always affected a country's economy positively. Besides its benefits, it has got some detrimental effects. Now, this sentence is okay, but sometimes, when you're using a word like "it's" to refer to information before it, it flows better if you don't use the same pronoun "it" to refer to "its." Do you know what I mean? So this might be better if you were to say something like, so a successful tourism industry has always affected a country's economy positively. Besides its benefit, such an industry has got some detrimental effects, or something like that. So it's just kind of varying the language a little bit, and you're not using it twice to refer to the same thing in the same sentence. Okay, just a small thing there. Now, okay, I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, I've written again that so grammar is what's holding you back here, Samad. I see some good examples, good progression. You seem to be trying to link your supporting paragraphs back to your thesis, which is good. But unfortunately, there are a few grammatical issues, and I've noted here that there are also some issues, particularly with preposition use. Okay, so thank you for that, Samat. That's another Band 6 essay. And we move on to another Band 6 essay. Lots of Band 6 essays this time around. So Alessandro. Okay, Alessandro, you were also very strong in that you shared specific examples. So let's take a look here. So to illustrate this, the local public city council in Sao Paulo City decided to install new and resistant garbage bins around Paulista Avenue. Okay, good. So very specific, hard to counter that. Let's see the second example. Taking Sweden as it should be an example. It is possible to find information signs in 6 languages at famous museums. Okay, so again, very specific. Now please be careful of your lexical resources. So if I just go back up to the first one. Okay, firstly, it is essential for high visited places. Maybe a phrase like perhaps highly trafficked places, or a word to that effect would work better. Now, to have where to dispose garbage, so this is very awkward, and we really need to come up with some different way to word this. So firstly, it is essential for highly trafficked places, maybe to make garbage bins readily available. Something more like that. But to have where, I don't even really, I think that's what you're trying to say, is that they should have more of these around, but it's very hard to follow when it's worded like that. Okay, another note I made is that you have very logical conclusions in your writing, which is great. So it's not so much the logic or the way that your thinking is progressing through this stuff. You're using reason, you're using argument, you have a basis for what you're saying, and you're basing all of your argument on evidence. That's great. It's more just we have to work on grammar and lexical resources. Okay, so thank you for that, Alessandro. Okay, now we get into one. I'm awarding this essay band 6, but I think I'm being generous here because this next essay could, fall to a 5.5. And this is by Kruxnick. Kruxnick, you need to look at articles and plurals because I see, yeah, you must be from Eastern Europe because you have many areas where your articles are missing, and I know that that's a very common mistake for Eastern European people. So please go back and have a look at that. This can be seen among most countries of Southeast Asia and South Europe. It is believed that despite the positive side, should be here, and then down here, due to the growing tourism industry, and then I'm just noting here when I look at my notes, it's throughout your entire essay. This issue is present. Missing articles in many places. Also, please watch your plurals. There are several areas where words should be written as plurals. Okay. Now let me see what else I can offer you here. Yeah, there are some lexical issues as well. Maintain touristic places clean. Now, the better way to word this would have been maintain the cleanliness of tourist hotspots or something like that. Let me see. Oh, I wasn't sure. It could just be a spacing issue. I don't know why you skipped a line here, but maybe it's just a typo or something. But yeah, I thought that, really these tiny issues with your grammar, it starts to, it's obviously not just a little mistake here and there. It's clear that this is really a part of your language. And unfortunately, I think the examiner would probably read into that pretty seriously and mark you down considerably for grammar. So, but aside from that though, I thought that, the examples you share, so you shared La Rambla in Barcelona and you shared an island in the Philippines. I mean, these are tangible examples, they're true to life. So I thought that was great. The thinking and the way that you kind of progressed through your argument, I thought was good. You lose, a little bit of the clarity as you move through it, but I think that that's also just a grammar issue. So as soon as we get your grammar a bit stronger, that should also improve. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's move on to our next one. Now, this next essay is band 5.5, and it's been sent to us by Ijaz Bashir. So again, Ijaz, you're missing several articles in many areas. You're missing articles. And I wanted to just address this strategy. So here's the start of your first supporting paragraph. So I'm not exactly sure why you spend quite a bit of time getting through your topic sentence. So it says, firstly, frequent visits by tourists, it should be tourists, can alter the historic ambiance of toured places. To preserve the historic sites into their original shape is a difficult task. There must be legislation at, I'm sure that's supposed to say state level, which can restrain those activities which are demolishing the frequented areas. Now, I think you've used 3 sentences to say something that's really a very basic idea. So when the examiner reads this, it's long-winded, it's not specific, it's not concise, and it's not to the point. And unfortunately, I think that the examiner will take off marks for this sort of writing style. Okay. Let's see. Unfortunately as well, you conclude this paragraph. Where does this say historic legacy? Okay. So this is the line skip. You conclude this paragraph with, in this way, they are successfully preserving their historic legacy. Now, I have no idea how this connects to the topic that we're given in our essay question. So you might want to look at that. It's critical that you use this sentence to tie back to your introduction paragraph. Okay, so please be sure to do that in your future essays. Now, please watch certain things like our. So you spent the whole essay kind of using a passive voice and not using personal pronouns, and that's good because in your essay you're not supposed to sound too personal. It's supposed to, it's academic writing. It's supposed to be something that is a little bit more formal. So I wouldn't use words like our and we and I in your essay if you can avoid it. So this should be worded something like, in order to preserve the culture and heritage uh, of a country, and then move on like that. But I wouldn't start using our and we, because then it starts to sound like you're it just sounds too personal, and that's not what we want in our essay. Okay. And then, and then you had two supporting two topic sentences in your second supporting paragraph. So that is something we want to avoid as well. Okay, so thank you for that submission. Now the next submission is also 5.5, and this was sent by Mohammed. And I forgot to edit out this stuff, but anyway, too late now. Okay, Mohammed, there are issues with articles. There are issues with spacing. I'm not sure why there is no space here between your period. I don't know why there's no space after your comma or after this comma. There are issues with plurals. And in your introduction, a very major thing is there's no real announcement that your essay will look at the solutions to the problem. And that's very important because that's really what your thesis should be. So in a way, your essay is kind of missing a thesis, and that's not going to work to your advantage in the exam. Okay, now because, I don't know, maybe it's because that your essay is sort of missing a thesis, you tend to not reflect upon the central theme of the essay in your concluding sentence, in your supporting paragraphs. So in addition, citizens should be taught how to do to increase their safeness. So I don't know what this has to do with the topic of the essay, which is supposed to be curbing the damages that tourists cause. So I'm not sure why we're looking at the safety of tourists here, but okay, something you might want to look at. The same is true in the concluding sentence of your second supporting paragraph. And there is an issue with your concluding paragraph in that this last sentence appears to just kind of run on and not really say anything with clarity. Okay, so a few areas there that you can work on, but thank you for submitting that, Mohammed. Now the next essay was submitted by Manamala, and this essay is a Band 5 essay. First thing, Manamala, please watch that you're not too gender specific when you're talking about a large group of people made up of both men and women. So this is no longer really considered proper form. You could change that to maybe human nature. Okay, now what notes do I have here? Let's see. So there are several instances in your writing where you write these very long sentences, and the problem with writing long, elaborate sentences is that it increases the chances of you making grammatical mistakes, and that's exactly what happens in this essay. So we see here the first example. So for example, and then this sentence finishes all the way down here. So for example, the Indian government promotes tourism by the slogan Incredible India, which carries with it both the pictorial and factual description of the place of interest in all leading dailies and important television channels. So this is too long, the grammar starts to break down. What you want to do is just shorten it, make it concise, just share a simple idea. You don't really have to be elaborate. Of course you want to use academic vocabulary, but there's no reason to write these long poetic sentences that will only lose you grammar marks. Okay, now what else can I share? Right, so if we look at the concluding sentence in that paragraph, it starts with, thus it is clearly seen. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, so now what I noticed here is that you start the paragraph talking about educating people through advertisements and newspapers, and then you finish the paragraph talking about vandalism. Uh, there is a loose connection there because I see you have, conserving a historically important place, and I think that's what you were talking about, is that you felt that a possible solution could be to have more media displaying how people should conduct themselves when visiting certain parts of the world, and I think that's a valid argument. It's just here, I don't, it just starts to feel kind of loose to me. You start talking specifically about vandalism, which is not so much mentioned in the other parts of the paragraph. You're talking more about media, and then just here at the very end you start mentioning vandalism. So I don't know if this is a central point within this paragraph, but if it is, you should have brought it up earlier in the paragraph. Okay. Okay. Yep, and that's pretty much it. So there are, I've just noted here, several awkward word choices where when you read through it, I know what you're trying to say, but the words can be kind of awkward. There are spacing issues, obviously. I don't know, what's going on here, why this is capitalized. Why is there a space before this comma, but not after this comma? Why is there no space after this full stop? So you might want to look at that quickly. That's very clear when you're typing things out. It might not be so clear on your exam, so you might be able to get away with it, but please just clear that up. You should be spacing after your full stops. And there are several misused pronouns here, so you might want to take a look at that. Okay, thank you very much, Manamala. The next essay is also Band 5 from Simona. So again, issues with spacing. So there's a space after the comma, not exactly sure why. I'm sorry, a space before the comma. Okay, now I'm not sure what's going on here. I noticed that there was an isolated S here, and I don't know what that is all about. Okay, now if we look at the final sentence in this introduction paragraph, so here it's written, to tackle these issues, well-maintained tourist spots and educating local people to serve as tourist guide, related solutions will be analyzed for viability. Now, things start to really get awkward about here. Okay, I think I know what you're trying to say, but it's so awkward at this point that I almost lose, your train of thought. It almost becomes completely incoherent. So to tackle these issues, well-maintained tourist spots, okay, I know where you're going there, and educating local people to serve as tourist guide related solutions. I'm not exactly sure. I imagine that you're going to talk about teaching people how to be better tour guides, perhaps. But anyways, I just wanted to point out that there are certain areas in your writing where things start to become incoherent. You also have an issue with writing sentences that are too long. So here's the start of your second supporting paragraph, and this is the sentence. However, to address the issue of adverse effects of globalization brought about by tourists, it is suggested that local people should be adequately educated and trained to flourish their own culture to visitors, instead of letting the outsiders to spread foreign trends. Okay, so I know what you're trying to say there, but it's long, it's elaborate, the grammar completely breaks down. So I think the examiner would unfortunately probably just look at this and just figure the sentence is invalid because its structure breaks down so much. So again, please stop putting spaces before your commas and before your full stops. Okay. Now, you have to be careful with your wording because here we have, you say, so thus this suggestion is plausible. That's fine, except for that you don't word it anywhere in here as if it's a suggestion. So, for example, people visiting China are often supposed to wear the traditional dress. Anyway, there's no language in here that makes it sound like it's a suggestion. So when you conclude it, this suggestion is plausible, it reads awkwardly. And please also don't forget that when you're talking about countries, you should be capitalizing them. Okay. Okay, that's about it. So I think grammar is the main thing here. If you can clean that up, then you will see yourself improve. You seem to have an understanding of the essay structure, which is good. So I'm hoping that when you get your grammar cleaned up, that your future essays will grow in band. Okay, thanks for that, Simona. Band 5. Next one is also a band 5 from Adafe. Okay, so several grammar issues here as well. The thesis and outline sentence, I've just noted that they are awkward and somewhat awkwardly grouped. So it is believed that governments can address these issues through enforcing specific rules and providing more facilities and information for their citizens and visitors in the period when there are many tourists in their countries. Okay, good. And let's see. So okay, it's actually not as bad as now that I look at it again, as I noted here in my paper, but still, I mean, the grammar starts to break down a little bit. I see the 2 points that you're going to talk about. So you're talking about enforcing specific rules and providing more facilities. It's just the whole thing is kind of, long-winded and sort of awkward. We should try to condense it a bit if we can, or just completely separate, your thesis, what the main problems are, from these solutions. And if we go to let's see here. Okay, so again, so little things. I don't know why this is capitalized. I don't know why there is no space after your comma. Okay, I've noted here. Okay, so several grammar issues. Okay, now I noted here, where's the sentence with moreover? Here we go. Okay, again, so moreover, authorities should educate and inform their citizens to take, I think it's supposed to say precaution, more than before in the tourism seasons. Now, I'm just not sure why this is being shared. I don't see how that ties to our thesis. And then there's an example that comes right before it that doesn't appear to be discussed. So, for example, they can increase the number of buses and trains in their, I think that's public transport systems, or extend their working hours. So anyway, Adafa, you need to discuss these examples, and you have to show the reader, how does this link? How does this prove what you're trying to say? These could be perfectly good examples, but I don't see the link back to your thesis. You have to show me, you have to explain in your discussion sentence what this link is. Okay, and then, so what's going on here? Another example. In addition, governments should ask the tourism companies to increase the awareness of visitors about the traditions and specific rules. So why is that? You need to tell us. You need to explain, why is this an important thing? How would this help solve the problem? How does this link back to the thesis? Okay, your conclusion sentence is, thus it can be understood that some issues can be tackled by being prepared in advance. Okay, so, I mean, what issues are we talking about? Anyway, you need a clearer link back to the subject of the essay. Again, please watch your capitals here. If you have silly little mistakes like this, it will really cost you dearly on the exam, because to the examiner, it's something they very quickly pick up, and then they think that you're not a master of the language, and then they have this perception that you don't know the very basic rules of English, and that will kind of feed into their overall impression of your writing. So we don't want that to happen. Okay. I think that's just about all I have. I've written here that it's your writing is at times incoherent, which is unfortunate, so the message is not getting across. But there is the start of a structure there. So please go back, Adifan, and look at the structures that we talk about in the videos, and try to stick more to that instead of just listing a bunch of examples and then hoping the examiner makes the connection to your essay question. Okay, but thank you for sending that in. Band 5 essay. Okay, this next essay is also Band 5, sent from Deepak. Okay, now the comments I have are okay. Firstly, the essay is sort of missing an outline. I've commented here that the thesis looks pretty good. So in this essay, I will describe how proper measures can be taken by authorities to control these damaging effects. Okay, that's good. But what are you going to be talking about in the essay? We need to see a sentence here that sort of prepares us for the remainder of the essay, for the arguments you're going to be making. Okay, you also, for some reason, feel the need to use 2 topic sentences before sharing an example. That's true for both of your supporting paragraphs. So again, please try to be concise if you can. Let's see, your second supporting paragraph, I wanted to talk with you about this final sentence here. As this helps to make our prestigious monuments to remain clean. Now this comes right after your example. So there, the example is shared. For example, in India, and why is this capitalized? And why is this capitalized? In India, popular place like India Gate has number of garbage bin to control litter. Okay, so the grammar is all over the place there, but I know what you're trying to say. And then there's no discussion. You go directly to a conclusion, which is also unclear. So there should be some sentence in here that helps to clarify for the reader, why does this example prove the topic? Okay, but the very, very first thing, Deepak, is you need to clean up this grammar. So please go and read some essays and make note of the actual phrases that are used in those essays. Try to use those exact same phrases in your own essay. And what you'll notice is that doing that enough, and with time, your writing will naturally improve. Okay, Okay, now I've written here that there is an example here. Yeah, so this example, okay, for instance, in cities like Delhi, no one can buy alcohol-contained drinks under 18 years old. Yeah, so that's fine. The example is fine, but you want to show. So you shared the example that people who are under 18 years of age cannot buy alcoholic drinks. But the problem is that you haven't shown that this leads to a positive sort of tourism experience in Delhi. Do you see what I mean? So we need to show that the example that you're sharing here, you're trying to say that this is what they do in Delhi, but you didn't continue the example. You didn't show us that it actually works in Delhi. You just say this is what people do. So this example really, the way it's presented here, doesn't really have anything to do with your essay question because you haven't developed it enough. Okay, so we have so this provides a safe environment, and sometimes youth can be involved in fighting. So what's the connection to tourism? You need to clearly tell us. Don't assume that the examiner is going to start making the connections for you. They are not. They're here to just read through your essay and to see that you can communicate those connections to them. Okay. And then there are the issues with grammar. seem to also be present in the conclusion. So here we have, in the end, creating more tourism and safe environment. That's not even a sentence, so I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, please focus, Deepak, on improving your grammar. But thank you for submitting that. And there are a few promising things there. I see, you've separated your ideas into paragraphs. That's good. So I think that the foundation is being built at the moment, and I'm sure that you'll be able to improve upon it down the road. So thanks for that. Okay, let's continue on. Now here we have Delvey Davis. Okay, now Delvey, I saw you have here AKA. So I think you're trying to say as known as, which we don't want to use acronyms like that. I mean, that's something you would write in maybe a text message to your friend on your iPhone, but it's definitely not something you want to write on your IELTS exam. Okay, so now there's a very big issue in this essay. I'm not sure if I mentioned, this is a Band 4 essay. So the entire first supporting paragraph lists examples that establish the causes of problems, but doesn't talk at all about the solutions. So to start with, one of the major problems facing by tourism industry is accumulating garbage, polluting the precious resources by simply throwing the waste away, puts the water, beaches, wildlife, heritage sites, and nature in danger. Similar, another issue is the increased crime rate. Okay, so we talk about crime. They damage the harmony of fellow tourists and local public. In addition to that, there's a significant danger of the local culture. Most tourists from different cultures mingling with local culture, even sometimes tourists do offensive stuff unknowingly to local culture. For instance, a woman wearing a knee frock in Saudi Arabia is offensive. So now there is no talk at all about the solutions to these problems. You're just talking about the problems. So unfortunately, you've completely missed what the essay question was asking. So what will happen is your examiner will look at this, and there is absolutely nothing they can pull from it except for a sense of your grammar. Okay, so it doesn't address the task at all, and I think that's really unfortunate. I think that this would actually be a very fatal mistake in the IELTS exam. So then you start to talk about the solutions. Undoubtedly, there are many solutions to this, and then you list a number of solutions, but you don't give any discussion of these solutions, and you do share some specific examples. So this example of Dubai is good. Please don't use dashes in your essay. Again, just reserve that for the text messages that you send on your phone, but don't include that in your essay, please. So anyway, I think what you need to do is to go back to the videos that we're using online and really master essay structure, okay? Because I don't see any real, progression in this essay at all. I see a big list of the problems, I see a list of solutions, but I don't see any discussion, and I don't see any real link to a thesis. So here we have, the finish of this, the final of this paragraph is, apart from that, the government can enforce new laws to preserve the wildlife and nature, which should obviously be conveyed to the guests. So this has no real sense of a connection back to a thesis or anything like that. And on top of that, it's missing a full stop. So, okay, so please, the first thing for you to do is to go and study essay structure. That's the absolute first thing. Then we need to work on improving your grammar. Okay, thank you for that submission. Okay, next essay is from Karina. And so Karina, I've noted here that in several instances you fall victim to writing these long sentences that become grammatically inaccurate. Okay, and that's kind of an issue. And let's see. I've noted that your grammar is better than a Band 4, but unfortunately things like lexical resources are quite weak, and just those run-on sentences, they you know, unfortunately, they cause you to make certain mistakes that, you know, add to a certain level of incoherence at times. Okay. So please watch your comma use. I just noted to myself that at one point it appears that there are commas everywhere. So if we look at this sentence here, either is something extraordinary like art museums, palaces, or beautiful gardens sustained by the historical heritage of the country, or something untouched by people, natural reservations, wild areas for the most adventurous of the tourists. So this sentence is pretty much incoherent. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say. And so I think that this is a combination. There's some grammar issues here. There are some grammar issues here. Lexical resources are weak here. Task achievement is also impacted because I have no idea how this really connects to your thesis or your essay question. So unfortunately, I think it's sentences like this that really, really, you know, put your band down. Okay. But thank you for submitting that. The next essay is also band 4. There are several instances of incoherence in this essay, and I'm guessing your name is Vanton. So Vanton, there are several instances of incoherence, unfortunately. Let's see, what have I noted here? The essay itself is unfortunately almost completely unrelated to the question. So let's see if I can find an example. Okay, perhaps the greatest bonus of touring industry is the increasing of total revenue annual. Comparing to other fields includes agriculture, plenty of industries, and so forth. Tourism is almost dominant interest. Another benefit of developing tourism is to solve jobless matter, which the challenge restrains the economy growth. So this entire area is really not connected to the essay question because you're being asked to provide solutions to a problem, and you don't even touch on that in this part here. Okay, so when you go to write essays, just leave this sort of thing out. There's no need to talk about things that aren't addressed in your essay question. Okay, you're missing an outline sentence in your introduction paragraph. And I've just noted that lexical resources are unfortunately quite weak. Okay, so that's what's going on there. So just to give you some advice, please go back and read the essay question again, and maybe read Vic's essay, and you will see, you know, his essay is much more connected to the essay question itself, and your essay is not. It's talking about something completely different. And that's all I have to share there. But anyway, please don't give up. It will come with time. It just, you know, it takes more practice. But and please make an effort to shorten your sentences until, you know, to the point where they are grammatically accurate a lot of the time. I think here the sentences are a little bit on the long side, and I think they're at a length that you can't really control grammatically. So that's an issue. But thank you for submitting that. And finally, our last essay is also a band 4, and it's been submitted by Showweb. And so unfortunately there's quite a bit of awkwardness in this essay. Lots of issues with articles, Showweb, so please go back and review those. There are lots of issues with capitalization, so that's a very basic thing, so please clean that up. Plurals are also a problem. Unfortunately, you don't provide any discussion at all of your examples, and it appears that there are also, you know, 2 topic sentences before you share an example, and there are instances when you're using words like we, so it makes the whole essay kind of feel a little bit on the personal side. And for your examples, so here you shared Kolkata, which is good, but the other examples, like for example, we can keep adequate dustbin in each place where there is a possibility of littering. This is not very specific. I don't know where you're talking about. You're just kind of generally talking about a place. I don't know which place that is, and you're talking about putting dustbins there. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So anyway, if I was to give you some constructive feedback, I would say, go and read some Band 8, Band 9 level essays. Note the manner in which they word things, and then try to apply that to your own writing. Okay, and so we really got to get that grammar improved. I think you have a sense of the structure, I can see, because you have a topic example and then some sort of conclusion. But I think we need to work on that a little bit too and firm that up, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't see so much discussion in this. I see some example and then a quick conclusion, but not very much discussion. So we need to get that improved. Okay. But thank you very much for submitting that, Shoaib. Okay, so that is the end of this video. And thank you all for submitting your essays and getting involved in the contest. And I'll try to throw another one out there maybe sometime in the coming weeks. And anybody watching this, if you'd like to get involved, please go over to IELTSnetwork.com. You can see these essays posted there, and you can read through them and interact with me and other IELTS enthusiasts. So thank you for watching, and have a nice evening.